right, so welcome everybody. Today we have Sarah Choo over here, and let me just share you who she is. She's an artist and educator. Recently clinched the 3D Interactive Award for the Lumen Prize for Art and Technology 2021. Artist has since exhibited internationally at the Turku Art Museum in Helsinki, National Museum of Singapore, Busan Museum of Art in Korea, Art Paris at the Grand Palais in Paris. She was also the previously youngest and first female artist to win the Icon de Mattel Cordon Bleu Photography Award. She's a trailblazer in art education in Singapore. She also got the Outstanding Young Educator Award. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for the very generous introduction.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah. Wow. So that's when I think about art, I always go back to this whole idea of my parents saying that, okay, you know what, study anything. Cannot study anything. Just don't study art, anything to do with music and all that. So for you to actually, and I'm very curious, for you to actually make this into something more of like, okay, this is not only my passion, this is something more. Didn't you have that kind of background as well where people kind of like said that, why are you even pursuing that? Or you had support all the way?
Okay, I think definitely, absolutely understand what you're saying. I've been through all that. For me, I've always found that art offers a very unique and universal way for us to engage with one another. So I think that's my very first draw towards art as a language, as a form of expression, I suppose. But of course, growing up, I of course would have met with kind of challenges when indicating that I would like to work with art or do something a little bit more creative.
Okay. And these challenges are from?
Sorry?
These challenges are from who?
From my, friends, immediate family, parents. I do think that it is, I do understand where they're coming from. I think that it is a legitimate question, right? At that time, given where our parents were from, their generation, it would have been very difficult for them to make ends meet, right? Yeah. I think they come from a generation where pursuing jobs that are more practical made more sense. They were more logical. They were trying to put food on the table. Yeah. But I think
get a house and all that.
Exactly. But I think with our generation and the younger generation now, we can afford to think about our careers in a different way, in a different light. I don't think I think in future, actually in 5-10 years time, I'm not even sure if all of us will be carrying or wearing one hat. We'll be taking on different roles.
Agree. I think for our generation, usually, this whole idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right. My food, basic shelter and all that is done already. A lot of us are trying to seek the top part, which is self-actualization. And it is about meaning, purpose, and about like, what do you really want to do in life that at 80, when you look back, you kind of don't regret.
Exactly. And that's why the constant questioning, right?
Yes.
Like of our identity. Who are we? Why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
How are we going to get, there?
Yeah.
There, meaning wherever we want to be individually, right? Yeah. That questioning is very important. Yeah. So
how did it happen? Was it like, wow, your first crayon, you'd be like, wow, I kind of like it.
No, not
at
all.
The fridge painting is like, everybody look at it and say, oh my goodness, this person has talent. How did it happen?
No, actually, contrary to what many people believe, I don't believe I was born an artist.
Okay.
So I wasn't actually equipped with the skills to render a picture or a painting aesthetically pleasing in an aesthetically pleasing manner.
Okay.
So for me, it was more of me trying to figure out. I wasn't really good at expressing myself. Not like how I am here. I think I'm more comfortable here than I've been in a long time. Just having this conversation with you. But I think initially, just expressing how I felt in words, that was a challenge. And I found that images and visuals were able to do that in a very subtle way, because when you are confronted with certain imagery or a certain visual or maybe a show or a scene with some music, right? You can choose to continue watching or you can choose to walk away.
Yeah.
So I really loved that I have that option, and people who might be confronting my artworks also can have that option. I'm not forcing them to digest what I'm saying immediately. They can, receive it and then decide whether or not they read it in a particular way and figure out whether they want to absorb it in this way or now or later. So that's something I really enjoyed.
So strange. It's so interesting. You say it in such a way that it's almost like art is like I'm sharing something. I do hope that you will hear it, but if you don't hear it, it's fine.
Exactly. It's like
You
a
can walk off.
conversation.
Yes.
It's a language.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like never saw art that way. So then where do you feel that it started for you then?
So in secondary school, that was when we went through that phase of, I think we had to pick our subject areas, whether you want to go into art stream or science stream. And of course, back then, art stream, you would be in the last two classes, at least for my school, right? You're the last class. The arts class is the C classes. And so when I explained to my parents, I do want to pursue art and I do want to take it on professionally and make a
Wait,
career
this
of
is
it.
secondary school.
Yeah, in secondary school, yeah.
How are you so firm that you can say these things?
Okay, so the interesting thing I think was, so in secondary 2, when I started to have a little more exposure to the different mediums in art making,
Okay.
I realized that art is beyond drawing and painting. There are other mediums. There's photography, and it is quite interesting. So maybe I want to try and experiment with this. And when I just, I guess when I expressed that interest to take art as a subject, like to further my studies in art in secondary 3, that was when I had to make that decision.
Yeah.
So for my parents, when they immediately came back and told me that they do not think that's the best idea, for me, then I guess that was the first step where I had to make a choice whether I would listen and say, oh, okay, they have a point right there.
Yeah.
Let me stop here. And I'm okay with it. Or would I take on a different approach, which is, and that maybe, I have to be uncomfortable enough for me to say, no, I want to try this out, And so for me, I went towards that direction of saying that I really want to try to do this. Of course, he said no, and I struck a deal with the principal back then. And the school allowed me to take it on as an extra subject. So I do not have to attend, I cannot attend the lessons because timetable clash. I cannot attend lessons, but I will follow up after school, work on the assignments that all my other peers would be working on in a different class. They would be doing that during their lesson. I'll do it in my after school hours. Wow. And then at the end of the year, we're going to look at my results, and see if, my results are slipping. So if they have been slipping, then I have to give it up. Or if my art results are not reflective that I'm doing well, I will also have to give it up. So it was 1 year of kind of...
probation.
Exactly. So...
But it's a special arrangement, huh?
It is.
And you're the only one that after school, then you do your art.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And so you were... so was it that your parents is like, okay, so you're not in those arts classes?
That's fine. You're safe.
Yeah. So you're still in those other classes, but then you still take this. You have 1 year to prove yourself.
Exactly. Yep. So that works. Because for me, it's also the period of time where I started to ask myself whether this is really what I want to do. Because it takes a lot of discipline, to say after school hours, okay, no, I am going to have to plan my time out. I cannot be doing this during the weekends, on Sundays, my friends might be hanging out. But for me, I can't because I have to catch up, And on top of that, I have to catch up on my studies too, because I wasn't academically very strong also. And then also I started to question if I'm going to be spending so much time on this subject. I'm sure when I graduate, right, after secondary, for going into college or any other tertiary education, right, I would want to be doing something art related. If not, why am I spending, 8 to 10 hours a week or 20 hours on
Should be something
the subject?
you build on.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's when I started to think a little bit further, like whether I really do want to pursue this. And if so, how would it work out, right? Because all my life I've been fed with, that theory of you're not going to earn much money.
Yeah.
You'll have to find another job, or,
you do it as part-time, you don't do it as full-time. A lot of negative stigma, right? Art has a lot of mediums. How did you pick your mediums, or what was the process of like, okay, I need to experiment and try this. I just don't want to draw. I want to take photography. What mediums do you try in that secondary school to around there?
So I think in secondary school back then, the very popular medium that all of us would be exposed to is that of painting. So we did a lot of painting, but I wasn't very good at painting. So I spent a lot of time just really trying to master painting, shading, tones. And so I was trained very much as a painter. I spent a lot of time, and finally, when I left secondary school, I would say I was a photorealistic painter. My painting and a photograph would look almost identical. Yeah. But that's also when I started questioning. So as I progressed on to junior college and then university, I remember being very proud of my paintings and my art forms, like watercolor, oil. I can do all that. And then one day a professor asked me, why are you painting from your photograph when your photograph says so much more? It speaks so much more than this work that you just painted.
Yeah.
Because of its medium, right? Photography, it captures that moment in time. There's a particular reality that it's trying to convey through an image.
Yeah.
And I couldn't answer his question. So I started reading and then going back to the drawing board. And then I started to get really interested in photography as a medium.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started to learn a little bit more about the techniques in photography.
Right. And this is after JC University.
Yes,
So your professor asked you, why paint a picture when the picture already says a lot?
Yes.
So then you started, hey, okay, good idea. Let's just try to go down that rabbit hole.
Let's think about this.
Before that, in terms of photography?
In JC a little bit. In college, just dabbled with it.
Right.
I found the photographs very beautiful, but I never really kind of got into it because I think when you just kind of always fed with the idea that the best way of making art or the best art possible is a painting on a wall.
Most expensive, huh?
Yeah, it's the best. It's the most expensive. It shows your craft.
Yeah, so when you think about painting, like old school would be, you just a palette.
Right, and so to me,
Sistine Chapel and all that.
To be the best artist would be that.
Make a beautiful painting,
large painting that's photorealistic. There's one of a kind. Yeah, and that was what art was to me. That was what good art was to me. But I think this also shaped the way I started to see education and art education later on, because I started to realize that, oh wow, the way we are teaching art in schools, or the way we are teaching in schools, we have to change. There's going to be a shift because we are sending a very misleading message to students. Yeah.
It sounds like because so there's art and there's technology.
Right.
So before any technology, the only art is sculpturing, buildings, or kind of like painting. Right. So if an artist, I either do any of these. But then when technology comes, like photography, like sound, like lights and all that, then there's a whole new medium, but everybody's stuck in the past.
Right. So not to say that painting or understanding shade, tone, lighting is not necessary. I mean, those are foundational skills that you still need to have.
Yep.
But to be discerning, right? To know that those are the foundational skills that I need to have. But I could always explore mediums and forms beyond that, right? Like with technology, like photography. And then now with AI, right? It gets more complicated because learning is no longer linear. I don't necessarily have to learn foundational skills before I go into AI.
True.
I can always do something with AI and photography and then go back and learn about, the foundational skills, which is not wrong, right? It's just different paces, I guess.
So it's like the in the middle of art, then there are many different doors now.
Yes.
Everybody can go through a different door.
Yeah.
And nobody's to say that is not art.
Exactly. And I mean, not even with art, right? I mean, with it's just everything is kind of cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary as well.
Agree.
So it's not just for art. It's just even when we're talking about learning, right? Science, I don't know, math.
Yeah. The whole education system. I mean, like I have some gripe with the education system big time. I think so. For me, it's very difficult to learn something and know that I will never apply it in my life. So that is a difficult thing for me, and I it's like why do I have to? Right. So I kept questioning. It's like, so whenever I do things, especially A-Maths, so I love bio. I look at the bio, it's like, oh, okay, interesting, useful, so I understand how people work and things like that. I want to go A-Maths and all that, like the impracticality of things just makes me question, like, okay, I will never use dI dx. I will never use y equals to that. So it's like, has to change. I'm concerned about Singapore's education system, even though I still don't know what is the cure. But I do feel that there is one
Moving
antidote.
forward.
Yeah. There's one antidote, there's one path for trailblazers and a little bit of rebels is that they just whack and then just try something themselves and then just see whether something sticks. You know, you throw 10 things up, something will fall. And that's my path. It's like, okay, try it out. And then you don't know until you try it out. So sometimes so it's just like, I think the education system, there'll still be a lot of people who still want to do that normal. Then there's a whole group of people who'll be like explorers, and that is the education, the school of hard knocks. So for you, when you started to when you started to deep dive into photography, what happened next?
So I spent a good couple years exploring photography as a medium. And then finally for my final year project that we had to deliver, right? I mean, it's almost like a dissertation and a thesis, right? In university. I decided to present a video installation instead of photography. And I think that drove a couple of my professors a little bit mad because we're talking about a time where maybe photography was still new as an art form, you know, be considered as an art form. Or still something that people were trying to understand and see.
Not comfortable, just basically
art,
not comfortable.
Right. Because it was seen as a documentary tool, right? Photography is documentation. How can it be art? So we were still at that phase. So now suddenly emerging from a photo degree, I'm kind of presenting a video installation. And it's of a scene in a 360-degree immersive room. So I think that was the next step in my career, or at least my practice. I felt like, okay, we're getting somewhere here, because I think the moving image and sound is important in curating an experience. And for me as an artist, I want to offer this experience to my viewers. So I think Marshall McLuhan, this writer, aptly puts it across as the medium is the message. So before you want to think about what medium to use, ask yourself, what is it that you want to say? So if you want to say this and it is best presented in this particular medium, pick that medium.
So your professors would probably be a bit uneasy when you're trying to do it that way, because photography is already new. You're going two levels down to like, okay, so now
they were like, is this animation? Are you animation student now? But yeah, I think a couple of them might have been concerned, but I did have great mentors along the way that guided me, you know, and told me that, you know, pointed me to books, readings, exhibitions, or artists that were doing similar things internationally, and also encouraged me to kind of look beyond.
So one thing when somebody's trying to go for their passion, there is a point where we need people to validate us, or we validate ourselves that we're on the right track. Because you could come out of the art installation and everybody's like, this is shit. What on earth are you doing? I'm going to fail you. Or there could be very supportive professors. Or it could be that even though they are not supportive, I don't give a shit. I will push and pursue. Where do you get that validation from? Who told you that that was the right path and all that?
Okay, I think two ways. I think the personal validation needs to come in. You cannot always rely on external validation, because you never know when it is going to not be there. And for me, I'm a strong believer in quotes. So I have motivational notes, quotes, stickers all around my room, at my study desk. You know, talking about like routine, motivation. You just got to stick to it. And we know that if we invest like, you know, a good couple of hours or thousands of hours in a particular craft and hone our skill in that particular area, we will get there. It's just a matter of when, right? Sometimes external validation, can take a while to come. And I think then that's where we have to look at patience, right? You have to be patient, because if you are in it for the short run and for quick validation, it's going to be very tough. But if you're in it for the long haul and you can see the bigger picture, it will definitely come. It's just a matter of when. And of course, I'm not saying regardless, that it will come to everyone. I'm saying with right reflection, and questioning, and then if you're constantly thinking about ways to better it, it will come to you. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have that validation? So is internal fire strong? How about external? Was there people who really helped to say that, I think you got something going, pursue it?
I think there were a couple of voices here and there,
Okay.
like, oh, this is interesting, you
Okay.
might want to consider it. But a large bulk of it was quite critical. I wouldn't want to say it's not negative criticism. I think it's very constructive for me, at least. And my parents' voice, I think that was very helpful, actually, because when you have very concerned voices kind of telling you their very real issues and very real fears, it just, for me at least, it made me more certain that this is what I want to do.
So your parents was the positive or the negative?
Critical, but I took it in a positive way.
So this was still on the final year project, that one?
It was all the way
Everything
from
lah.
secondary school all the way, and
My parents usually have that same song. What? Are you sure you want to do this? We'll support you, but you really sure? They always say that. Because last time when I was doing busking on the streets of Orchard Road, right? So they'll be like, what are you doing now? So I'm writing songs. So I like, are you sure? You sure you don't want to go in university? I say, yeah, I'll go one day, but next time. So it's always that same thing. Was it similar for you? That constant practicality?
Yeah, it was.
theme?
And I think also when it comes to art, with the amount of money that I'm spending on, like my materials, and then them reminding me that, hey, look, in university, how are you going to pay for your fees? And after that, if you do, what's going to happen after that? What job are you going to take up to pay back for your university loans, right? And then you have a brother. And so I was very certain. I remember for me when I was in secondary 4 going into JC, my first year of college, I was very sure I didn't want to take any money from them, any money at all, a single cent. So I would either make it work by working. So I took odd jobs. Work at like clothing boutiques, F&B, pouring tea, which was great because it allowed me to see a very different side of people, which later then informed my art practice. Well, I wouldn't say nasty. Maybe a little bit more. You see what the service industry entails.
Painful, very painful. So so I do want everybody to go through at least 1 week or 2 weeks of being in the service industry to just know
everyone. Yeah, really? I say that actually I think that every one of us should go through just a period where you try and be in the service industry. Then
and especially like anything to do with like people who are angry because of the food not there or upset with service, they go back to you like then you have a lot more empathy for the people, and then you be like, you understand why they're like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so take us through. Now you have so when it comes to university, was that a good thing? Was it well received, not well received? How do you feel?
That was great. So university, I then took up a scholarship to go to NTU.
Oh, cool.
And then after that, during my years in university, I think that was the period where I worked the hardest. Didn't have a social life.
What do you work on?
My art projects and practice. I was very determined that before I graduate from university, I needed to get gallery representation, so I could then sell my works and have my works be sold, and then kind of make a living and money, so that I can then pursue my masters.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're talking about, so now there's a passion part, which is just like doing the thing. Then there's the business part.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Who on earth taught you about the business part? Because the business part is a whole different thing. Then it's I have to brand myself now. I'm who and all that. Who taught you about that in university?
I had professors who will kind of introduce professional practice, to us, in the creative scene and things like that. But they were not locals. So we also had to, as students, then contextualize it to our environment here and our climate.
So after university, then straight away you did your masters?
Yeah.
Do you still do you have like earning from the gallery and all that already?
Yes.
Oh, already.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Then in
And
my master's, then I was like, I need to get representation in London
okay.
because I have no time.
So representation. So you learned about representation from professors and all that,
Right.
but it needs to be contextualized.
Yes. So then I started to go door to door to different galleries, knock on the door, bring my portfolio with whatever money I had, print out all my pictures, printed my CV. I remember knocking on so many doors. And then I finally found a gallery that was willing to represent my work.
Help me get into your world for a while. I'm an artist. I have a lot of different portfolio. I go to the gallery. Maybe the owner's not there.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an evil secretary there. Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Then they don't really care about you. But overall, would you say that you were somebody then or nobody?
Nobody at all, because of the kind of works that I was producing. I think visually they were a little bit darker. They were less not as typically well received. So I wasn't painting landscapes and things like that, right? I was doing artworks about social alienation, isolation, people and relationships, kind of loneliness, right? And so I think a lot of the galleries who were looking at my works would also be wondering, what is this student doing here, showing me some of her own personal projects or her school projects, right?
Yeah, school projects.
So even from gallery to gallery also, I had to refine my techniques, the way I approach the galleries. What do I want to say? What do I not want to reveal yet? What are some of the works? How do I curate my portfolio to suit the gallery that I'm meeting this time versus the next one? And then finally I found a match. And then that was great. So things took off. I managed to kind of establish myself. I made 5-year, 10-year plans of where I want to be headed, what I would like to achieve year on year.
Yeah.
And then one of my goals was, by the time I graduated from my degree, I needed to get into a master's course. That's always been my dream, to study, to do a master's in art. Abroad, of course.
Okay.
Because of
so, Choo, just to understand, because if I'm an artist, I don't have to study anything.
Well, yes.
Right? I can kind of like go off path.
Correct.
And just produce something to a point where, let's say my business acumen is super sad.
Yeah.
Right? But then that can already solve that problem. Yeah. So for you, when you are studying, what was the problem you're trying to solve? Or why would you want to study, knowing that that's also a path?
I think the very first level is to really understand what it is that I'm studying. Because art making, when we're talking about art, right, there is the making and there's the theory. And I think they both come hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other, at least not for me. Okay. I think to be a thriving contemporary artist, to be critical enough to talk about things critically, you need to be able to have the knowledge, right? You need to be able to know what you're talking about based on the history of art, contemporary artists, what's happening out there, what are some of the discussions, the discourse that's going on. Right. It also is not a bad thing. It is helpful to be around people who are connected. Yeah. And more often than not, that happens in your course, in your master's course. Yeah. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to further my studies, is to kind of, it's like professional development, right? Yeah. I wanted to take my art practice to another level. Another would be the international exposure.
Okay. Because you won't be a master's in Singapore.
I did not want to. Yeah, I wanted to go to London. Yeah. Okay. So before that, I did do a short stint at the Maryland Institute College of Art. That's in America, in Maryland. And I realized that, it was an elimination process. So I wanted to go there for a short while and then figure out, okay, if that's not the place that I want to be, at least I know. And then I can perhaps move to UK, like kind of switch around. And
so you had two choices.
Yeah, whether I want to go to US or UK for my master's.
Okay. So that sounds like, it's almost like we are on a path that we never know.
Yes.
Until we go there, we drink the Kool-Aid or drink the water, and
then
then we're like, yeah, I don't think I want that one. I think I want to try the other one. It's almost like there's no shortcut to trying out different things until you are certain. When you are certain, you have done that.
Yeah. I think also you need to be uncomfortable. Because if you are not uncomfortable, you will never know what works for you and how far you can be pushed.
True.
Yeah.
So okay, so then okay, question, would you say that it's almost like if you didn't go for your masters, let's say you didn't go for your masters, where would you be today?
I don't know. I think I'll still be making art. Yeah.
So but when you, so it's I'm trying to think about, for a person who's passionate about art, and let's say they have a full-time job, they cannot go to have a degree, they can't go for a master's and all that. So like, where would they learn?
Okay, I believe there are many, many routes to get to a similar destination.
Yeah.
And my route is just one example.
Yeah.
But there are many, many amazing, successful artists out there who didn't take a route like mine, who perhaps did not even study art. You know, I know of people, some of them are my close friends, who didn't even study art. And they are now really well-known photographers, high-end fashion photographers, living in New York City, traveling around the world. They are attached to a very established gallery, and they're doing very well for themselves. So I would say that everyone's journey is different. I think that my journey needed to happen this way because of the circumstances that I was in. I was trying to navigate and find a balance or strike a balance between being a, I want to say, ideal child and a child that listens to my parents, right? Putting family at my forefront, but at the same time not giving up my passion. Yeah, so I think that route works for me. I think if I were to turn back in time, would I have done it again? Yes, I would have. One thing that I realized though is with any decision that you make towards getting to your destination, it requires sacrifice, right? Whether it's time, relationship, time you spend with people that you love, time spent playing or relaxing and enjoying life. It all comes at a price,
always
right?
there's a cost.
And I think on hindsight, perhaps I would have wanted to figure out other ways to maintain some of these relationships that were close to me, I think. Because I really delved right in, head in, and just really, really focused on making my career work. So
Where did that come from? Like, was it since young that you wanted to make a name for yourself, or you just loved the craft so much that you wanted to be world-class, number one?
Such an interesting question. I've never really had that question before.
Because there are different. So when I was in insurance last time, some people don't even care about their client. They care about the leaderboard. If I'm number one this month, I don't give a shit. Right? I don't care about you as a client, but if I'm number one, I close the most sales. Right. So that motivation for that person. Right. Then there's another whole group of insurance agents that are, I don't care about that. I care about you. Yes. And I really want to help you and your family. Yes. But they are also up there. Yes. So it's like there are many different reasons. For you, it's like to it is such a cost, especially when we're younger, about relationships. Hey, hang out, come on, let's go eat prata. And say, hey, cannot, sorry. What was it for you? What was that? I think for a long time, it was to excel and be the best at my craft. Okay. Because I have been hearing so much about how I may not make it, and I'm female, and ultimately I'm going to get married, settle down, and I shouldn't spend so much time in my career. Maybe just find something simple. My mom likes to tell me that. Find something a bit simpler, less stressful. Just settle down. Don't make life so difficult for yourself. Because I keep hearing that, and I keep hearing things also like people talking about how as an artist you can't really make it, and how much, really honestly, how much can you earn as an artist? And I want to pull out all my examples and I can't, and the awkward conversations, right? Chinese New Year, like visiting where that relative, you still doing art, it's very good. And then the worst part is they totally ignore you, and then they go straight to your parent and they try to affirm your parent. It's so good, this is a good, and you're just like so I think because of all that, it fueled my passion too.
do well at what I'm doing and excel at what I'm doing.
So it's like some people do it just to have a big FU to the world. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some people do it that way. For you, it's more of, I just want to prove myself. I want to be number one. Similar to me, I believe that if you push yourself hard enough and you be number one, everything is there, number one.
Yeah.
The pay, everything that you wanted will be there, number
You find
one.
fulfillment. Yeah.
Your fulfillment, because you're pushing that barrier of what you already wanted in the first place. So yeah, it's but for those people who don't want to be number one,
Yes.
that's the scary part, because you don't push yourself more to a point where there's a lot of passion, but there's no performance.
Right.
Nobody says you're good at your craft.
Right.
And because there's no performance, nobody's going to pay you.
Right.
Yeah.
So at some point though, I wouldn't say it's the same, but I did have a similar feeling when I was in my final year in London. Because
This
everything
masters.
everything was going well. I got my gallery representation there, and I remember the one evening just kind of taking it all in and realizing that, oh, is this it? Like, is this it? Like, is this what I wanted? You know? And I realized that, oh, it's not really it. Like, that's not the complete picture. Because there was an element of, I suppose, a human touch of, I don't know, empathy towards my subjects, towards people around me, maybe mentorship even, right? That was, I felt lacking in what I was doing. So I was making art. But I found that the entire process and journey was very self-gratifying. But beyond that, I wanted something more. Like, I wanted to be able to guide others maybe that were on a similar path, right? Or maybe share my knowledge, not just in the art scene or in the art world, but beyond that. So then that's kind of where I turned towards education and looked at what I could possibly bring to the table.
Interesting. So it's like you pursued your craft, very good at your craft. You want to be good at your craft. You want to be number one in your craft. But then you felt that there was something missing.
Yes.
But it was only after that.
It was only after. Yeah.
But before that, this was your fire all the way.
Yes.
So it's something about people, something about empathy, something about teaching other people.
Yes.
Right? And then you kind of like so after that, you kind of, do you try to pursue both? That means there's a teaching part and there's also mentorship teaching part, and then there's still the artist part?
Yes.
So that was when you decided?
Yeah, that's when I also decided that I think this is the way to go. So, I mean, now and then I have people also asking me, I mean, because I do, for example, share at artist talks and also sometimes guest lectures and things like that, and also teach.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask me, oh, do you ever want to like be an artist full time? And I would say yes, I would love to, but I think it wouldn't be complete for me, you know.
Totally.
I feel like I also need the other side where I am not an artist. I suddenly remove myself as an artist and then can contextualize what I've been through for this person that I'm talking to and say, oh, you know, like, have you thought about this? You know, when you're thinking about pursuing this, maybe have you considered these elements? Or if this is something you're trying to look for, maybe I can point you to some direction and share some, like, you know, actual practical insights that I've been through, some of my experiences with these individuals.
So I do a lot of personality profiling and all that as a performance coach.
Okay.
So one interesting thing about personalities, there's different buckets that a person falls into. For a person who loves to pursue things like masters, PhD, and all, would you have gone to PhD if given a choice?
That's something that I've been thinking about, but I'm also asking myself why.
So all that, then it's like you would probably, right?
I think I would, because
it's the learning,
I enjoy the challenge. You know, like now, if I'm being put in a position where it's like a restart. You know, whenever I realize, whenever I go into a new course or, like, you know, a new area of study, it's like
new game.
It's new.
Start from level 1.
It's a new area, and I love that. And
fun.
That's also why I think from teaching and art education, more recently, I've also started getting really interested and involved in education technology. So the use of technology in teaching and learning, which is not art related.
Totally.
Maybe it's art art is a subset of it, but it
It's the medium.
entails a lot more. Yeah.
Different medium.
And the whole idea of how do we kind of develop, I don't know, students with new competencies, right? That and enable them to work with technology. So that's something I'm very, very interested in now.
Oh, that's very new. Would you say that's your latest thing that you're kind of like pursuing?
Yeah, right now that's something that I'm pursuing. Yeah.
So just now I was talking about a little bit of profiling.
Yeah.
What I realized was that people it's almost like they wear a hat of a teacher. A teacher and a student, they wear the hat of a teacher and a student. It's almost like if you like to learn something, you most likely would love to teach something.
Right.
So that profile is kind of called a learner. Like, I love to learn, and because of the insatiable quest to learn, I feel very fulfilled whenever I learn something. But it is also true on the other side. Because I learn so much, there's also the act of I like how the teacher teaches me.
Right. Yeah.
And I want to do that for others.
Yes.
So I totally get it when you say that art is just not about that, but it's also about there's an aspect of teaching other people. But it's for you, it's not everybody.
Yes,
it's just you.
definitely,
Because there's some artists like don't give a shit about teaching anybody. I just want to do
the
my
happy making work. Yeah.
Or it's the other side also. I just want to teach. Yeah, I'll do a little bit about, but the teaching is the one. So everybody is different. And it's great that you found that even at masters, because it helps us to understand that it is so dynamic. Our career is never just still and that, okay, I'm done. I'm an artist. Right.
Yes.
So just want to be able to kind of like condense everything. I believe that passion, there are three parts. Interest is that you can talk about that subject a lot, which is now so talking about that subject. Interest, there is talent, or we call it strengths, things that you're naturally good at. People say that you're naturally good at. And there's values. Values basically is things that art helps you, or whatever you're doing helps you to live out the values that you have. So for interest, just want to break it down in terms of for yourself. For you, art, was it something that, like, because a lot of people have different interests. I have like 10, 20 different interests, right? How do you know that this was the one that you wanted to carry on going into when you were younger? Why not other interests? Like, give me an example of a few other interests you had. Do you have any?
I did, but I think,
But was it everything around art you felt? It was just different mediums and all that?
Not exactly. I mean, I have always been drawn to, more aesthetic things, right? Like, for example, like, when walking in the streets with my mom, I remember looking at shop front windows and being very intrigued when the display was very creative.
Yes.
So maybe like they use just paper, or it's all just one color. And I remember just spending a lot of time staring at it. And then I remember,
that one thing pop,
exactly,
right?
and little maquettes and models in shops, and then wondering, oh wow, how does that work? And then I remember entering a watch shop, a repair shop, and then looking at the gears and the repairman kind of fixing a clock and looking at how he dissects that. And then I'm always wondering, like, how does he decide which part to take out, and is there a manual? And I mean, those things really fascinate me. So I think things are areas where I was able to see that there is some sort of an order. There is an order. It's a very clear order.
There's a schematic blueprint kind of thing.
But I don't know what the order is, and I cannot imagine how it will look like.
Right.
So that has always fascinated me. And I think with my art practice, that's how I've been approaching my art practice. So I always have an end in mind, and then I work through the layers, and there's always a particular way of doing things. And that's how I script out what I need to do, which is very different from how a lot of creatives and artists work. So beyond art, very structured, actually, very strangely very structured. And I think people who have seen my work, actually, some of my friends and my I would say art colleagues that are not Singaporean, they have actually given me that feedback before, and they said, your work is so structured. Everything is almost like it's perfectly laid there. Like the trash looks like it's supposed to be beautiful, And I think I'm very much shaped by how I was brought up and my environment in Singapore, where everything is kind of perfectly placed everywhere. Everything is constructed meticulously and almost perfectly, to the T. The trees are spaced out. So even in my artworks, everything is spaced out.
Right.
The lines are very straight.
So it's just how your mind works. Like you are a structured person. You see like order, like in terms of even your desk, is it clean? It's
a
neat?
very weird. It's a structured disorder
Structured disorder.
kind of situation. So
Okay.
I find something that is always there is I'm always living in the gray area. So like when I teach, I'm very, very, proper, professional. And when I'm making art, I'm just very creative and I let loose, right? So I need to navigate between these two. I cannot be one or the other.
Okay. So it's both are the chaos and order at the same
chaos
time.
and order, yeah.
Okay, so when you were younger, just now you talked about the interest.
Yes.
Sounded like you could also divert into branding,
Yeah.
right? Poster design, logo design, could even be things like graphic design.
Yeah. And I tried doing some of these during my spare time to earn money when I was younger. I tried, but I guess it wasn't so much for me. I think.
So of all the different interests, art kind of like just carried on compared to everything else. Because graphic design had a lot of elements of art. Like last time when I did logo designs, I thoroughly enjoyed it. This whole idea of negative space.
Yes, the positive, negative.
Yeah, it's like people's like
theory.
So you ask people who don't know design, it's like do a poster, bigger words better.
Yes.
Then for artists, it's like no, space, breathe.
Yes.
Like they see me like. Okay, so interest for you, clear cut. Strengths are things that it's almost like when you pick up those tools, it was light for you compared to somebody else.
Yes, maybe that was the case for art.
Yeah,
it was lighter.
It was lighter than other things that you studied.
Yes, like so. For example, I really enjoyed dance, but it was just more difficult for me. And maybe I didn't have the build, or at that age, So art was lighter for me, definitely. Right. Yeah.
So sometimes when besides the tools being light when you hold it, it is also that when you are immersed into that, it's almost like you know the next steps naturally, and nobody has to teach you. Do you find yourself having those kind of moments where it's like you look at yourself, then you finish something, it's like, hey, how did I do that?
I suppose. I want to say yes, but not really, because I never really. The way I approached art making was very structured because I knew I didn't know how to do it. So I actually spent a lot of time in the library. Well, because last time we didn't have like Google and all that, right? So I actually went to the Hougang Library, Hougang Mall, and I would pull out all these like watercolor books and try to imitate, because I just couldn't get it.
Right.
And so I spent like hours practicing. And if they tell me, for example, suddenly now I have to go and purchase this thing called masking fluid to create negative space, I would go to the shop and like really figure out how to use masking fluid. I remember the very first time I tried doing it, my brush froze because I didn't know I have to put it in water, because nobody was there to say anything and they didn't say it in the book. So I remember it being a real struggle, but compared to every other
task
this was the lightest lah.
The lightest, okay.
Yeah, or maybe because my passion for it made it feel like could be.
It's also the interest part, because you're so fascinated about it that 5 hours of time doesn't feel like 5 hours of time.
Yeah, that's not.
Yes, time just goes by and say, hey, wow, finish already, or it's dark, that kind of thing. That's the idea. That's when you are living in something or doing something that it's the idea of just time standing still. You just carry on that. So that's strength, that's interest and strengths. Last one I'm curious about is values. Like for me, I value boldness a lot, adventure, try out something new. So when I coach people, it's like, just go for it, just try. You don't know whether it's your first career or your 70th career, you don't know. But kind of like, if I went through 32 and I found it, then I think you would probably not hit 32, you probably hit 5 or 6. For you, what is your value that you feel that art and teaching art lets you live out?
For me, it's a lot about empathy and perspective taking. So I really believe, like, as individuals, we really want to establish some sort of connection, and maybe even an intimacy, right, with the person that we're talking to. And I think with art, that's something that we can seek to achieve with education as well. So a lot of times even when I'm photographing, painting, observing, watching my subjects, or when I am talking to my students, right, or someone who is younger pursuing art maybe, it's really about suspending that judgment and being able to be in that other person's shoes, understand where that person is coming from, why the person is behaving a certain way or saying something in a particular manner, and then being able to then perhaps hopefully connect with that person. And then kind of bring the other person up, right? Because I think at the end of the day, that's what I really treasure, being able to move forward together. And also, I mean, I suppose that's also why with more recent pieces of my works, I really enjoy and invite collaboration compared to the past where I take on a more individualistic approach to art making, where I just paint or make the work by myself. But now I want to work with other people. I want to work with a sound designer. I want to work with a space designer, or even, I don't know, another creative, a second director, for us to share ideas. And then kind of take the project to the next level. Yeah.
Is that usual, or is it more of like, actually people don't really do that?
I think people do that in the film industry, right? But not so much art.
Not very common, because I have my own style, you have your own style.
Right.
You kind of cram my style.
Yeah.
If you Okay. So I mean there's that individualistic expression that but so interesting that you kind of look forward to that collaboration. Very cool.
It was initially very disconcerting because it's out of my control, and I love control, right? I love to be
There's no
in
more
control.
structure.
Yeah, there's no more structure. So I really struggled with that. But I mean, with time you figure out it's okay. It's going to be fine. And in fact, I think it is very important because exchanging ideas and knowledge with other people, that's the way forward, and what better way than to do it via collaboration. Yeah.
All right. So I like when you said the idea of empathy. I do feel that sometimes from the little understanding I have of art is that some speaks to you, some doesn't speak to you.
Right.
And the whole idea of art is the idea of also is a reflection of the things that human beings we don't really are in tune to, which is sometimes emotion and sometimes who we really are, our identity. These very deep things that we cannot cover in our society because everything's about here. Logic, everything is about that, but it's not about who you are. What does it represent? What analogy does that show about you? If you paint something about loneliness, there was a part of my life that felt that way, and then just because of that, there's a little brightness inside me. That whole empathy part. I think I kind of see it when people talk about art and people talk empathy, and but for you, when you're painting all that, is that in the back of your mind that how does that person feel when he sees that, or what do I want that person to take away?
Definitely. I think that's always at the back of my head is when I am putting a work out there, how do I want my viewers to approach it? What do I want them to feel?
Right.
Yeah, so that's always something that I think about when creating works. Also when photographing and documenting my scenes, also wondering and thinking about what the other person or the subject is feeling. And that also helps me in a way decide on whether or not to include certain scenes in my work, because some of the individuals and the subject matter could actually be in vulnerable positions where maybe it is less flattering for them to be included in a particular scene. And that is a very big aspect of decision making, like when it comes to making a work or composite, right? What to leave in, what to take out. Yeah.
Okay. So last few things, for you at this point of time, it is art, it is teaching, it's being an educator, it is a little bit about tech part. Do you think that this will stay for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Or do you feel that, hey, maybe I would actually go into something else that's...
I'm open to going into new areas, actually. I think that's very important to grow, right? You need to be exposed to different areas and different environments. I do see myself in the arts and education sector, at least for the next few years, because I am very passionate about it. But we'll see what emerges from there. I think with so much disruption from technology, things are going to change very quickly and rapidly. And I think we also cannot kind of take having a single job for granted because we never know how that might look like in future, right? We'll all be taking on different hats. So.
Agree.
Yeah.
With the whole idea of everything going on so fast, careers can be a little bit more, a lot more flexible, and it's also exciting because it's a lot more dynamic as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be anybody, but I do feel that every time that we go into something new, everything that we have just gets pulled along,
Yeah.
and it shapes the thing that you're doing, the new thing you're doing. And I see that in my life also when I was creative director in my church doing dramas. So I always do all of dramas and all that. It's like, when I do corporate training, it is the same. It is that idea of presentation, and it is the idea of sometimes you must pause for dramatic effect, but that dramatic effect actually really helps with them learning. And it just kind of like there's a pulley effect of, you pull along all the knowledge and the wealth of experiences you have to the new thing, and that's what makes it unique.
Yeah, so if you can imagine, it's almost like you live your entire life and you have this entire bag full of tricks, right, that you acquire along the way based on the different experiences that you have. So I guess for myself, I mean, I'm sure a large part for you too, it's about exposing yourself to different experiences.
Yeah.
Not just limiting yourself and being too closed off saying, oh, this is all that I want to learn and I don't want anything else, but more of, okay, I might not be very comfortable now, but let's try this out and see how it then works in my favor.
Yeah.
So as your identity develops and grows, you will also be able to discern what are some of these characteristics and traits that you have picked up along the way and how they might be building towards or adding on to your identity.
Yeah, agree. I take it in so much like there are many rooms inside here.
Yeah.
Many rooms. Every experience opens a room.
Yeah.
And you never open. So it's like, oh, I opened the room. I see that. Oh, I have that in me.
Yeah.
And then you can just, now that room is filled with, the whole house is a bit brighter because of the different experiences. But if you never step out, that room will always be closed.
Correct.
You never know. Last thing. If I love life hacks, right? So when it comes to hack and all that, I'm not sure what kind of hack there is in the art industry, but I just want to like humor me and help me understand, like, is there something that you can share with us that, you could actually see it this way, and this is going to change the way you experience something in terms of art, the entire art industry? What would that be for you? Anything?
I would have to say networking. So I am, by nature, I'm not very, I'm quite introverted.
So this is not art industry, this is like life lesson.
And art industry, but it's art industry, but it adds to life lessons.
So
But
okay, so if
networking,
if I'm an aspiring artist,
yes,
one of the
networking.
okay, yes.
Yes, because you will need to know, you will need to get to know artists. You will need to know how to market yourself, to talk to people. You need to know galleries. You need to know curators. Get to know who sits on the board of museums, maybe even. Get out there to meet your collectors, because you need to know how to market yourself to collectors. It's going to be very different from how you talk to curators as well. And so there's no better way than to network. And I think, looking at it from the larger scheme of things, in life generally, you
yes.
really need to network. I think that's the best way, quickest way to move forward. And it also helps to develop different ways of perspective taking, right? Because you start to see different people from different walks of life, and that's when you kind of get to understand, them, right? And where they come from. Yeah.
Agree. I totally agree. Networking, I see this in corporations where people are very good at what they do, but if they don't network and they don't go to happy hour with their boss and all that, or they don't get to know upper management or other people, they get passed for promotion.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere. So yeah, I totally agree. And I think for artists, sometimes they just focus on the substance and the art, but they don't focus on the other part of it.
I'm guilty of that. So selective network.
Yeah,
selective network.
Not everybody is born to be a networker.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Any last parting words for viewers that regards to just going for the passion or anything about passion?
I suppose just that I think it's really important to follow your passion, because I think in various parts of your life, at various journeys, different moments, right, in your life, you can meet with challenges.
Yeah.
And I think passion is going to be what keeps you going. So it doesn't have to be passion in terms of one work area, but it's really asking yourself what keeps you going.
Yeah.
So if passion is going to be family, great, fantastic, then,
Yeah.
really focus on that, because then that's what's going to keep you going. So I think you can never go wrong with passion.
So it's almost like there's a fire, just have to fan it. Doesn't matter what it is, but that fire will keep you warm, especially on all the winters that we have.
Yes.
All right. So thank you so much, Sarah, for being here today and sharing with all of us. And I really enjoyed it. Would love to ask you many more questions, but our time is up.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.